Morning folks, Kevin here. Well, it's September 12th, 2022. I'm on the other side of the pond. Not sure how well you can see it. The pond is all around over in there. The access road is right down in that area over there. And so yesterday I was up here with Elon, the excavator, and trying to find a spot where I can put another hugelkultur pit. And so I've created large mounds, probably hard to see these mounds of the multiflora rose. So here's some here. This is a thinner spot, but really thick spots all around. And just trying to clear an area where I think that we might be able to put in a hugelkultur pit. So right up in here is where I'm going to put in a hugelkultur pit. I got my largest mound of the brush, the grapevines, and again there's extensive grapevines, wild grapevines here. So I've got right up over there a large mound there that I've got to bury. I've got mounds that I pushed around in different locations. You can see the access road coming across the ponds there. And I've got mounds all over in here. Not sure how well any of this is showing up. But there's a significant change in elevation right up here. The waterway, the way that the upper property tends to drain, there's two places that I can see. There's a area where someone had at one time along the stone walls over there in the woods, they had made a small trench coming down, and that makes this whole area very wet, all down in here. So getting a good source of gravel in here would be great, just to firm up the access road, so making it back and forth in here, and then putting in drainage swales, making its way to the various ponds here. Same thing, pretty dry up over in here, but as we get down closer to the margins, but you may be able to appreciate there's a nice slope down in here, which is pretty good. Trying to save all the nice trees that are here. Lots of ash that are dead. Interesting, I'll show you in future videos, all the basswoods. I tend to make a living fence, or lindens is the other name. So the linden tree I've talked about before, or the basswoods, they've been researched quite well for their ability to take some of the very tiny molecules, the PM2, PM2.5s, or PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and all those things are incomplete combustible products, and they adhere to the leaves. And then in the fall time, when the leaves fall from the forest canopy and fall on the forest floor, the fungal organisms break those down and neutralize them. So it's so important to have those. So I want to save as many basswood trees or linden trees as possible. Right here, I'm hoping that it isn't all sand, but from a couple of the root balls that I dug up, and this is the area that I'm going to be digging in, is this is probably 6 foot higher in elevation than the water line down there, 6 to 8 feet. So hopefully the closer we get to where the pond is itself, the more sand is deposited in these areas. As we get higher in elevation, we find that there's much more gravel in that area, and I really want to get gravel, but I think what I'm going to do is work over in here and start a hugelkultur pit right in this location here, and pile the sand or gravel in this location. Then I have a short distance for the massive pile there to put into the hugelkultur pit. But I need to get a lot of this material down and underground, and I need some decent material And that's, you know, using multifunctional aspects of life. You know, just trying to dig a big hole, sequester carbon that's going to hold moisture as well. It'll keep it from going in the atmosphere, covering it with earth. It'll be a good source of nutrients for plants to grow on. The earth that I take out of the ground will end up being used in other spots, hopefully nearby, so I can create the roadways as well. So that's what I'm going to start doing this morning. Clean up a little bit right here, and then see if I can get a good source of gravel or coarse sand if possible. Here we go. Okay, well, before breakfast I got the pit excavated. So this is the material. A lot of sand and some clay in the bottom of the pit. So let's have a look here. Just a couple of rocks in there. A couple over there. One in there. Of course, that's interesting. That's probably the reason that the beaver ponds retain as much water as they do. Well, you can see we got some clay here mixed with really fine sand. And of course clay, and I made a video in the past, sand, silt, and clay, telling the difference. And really it's the finer the particles and the charge of them. But this isn't pure clay. So it's got silt and small sand mixed in with it. But that's the pit. And now I think I'll at least start working on this one big pile here and see if I can get as much of this in there as possible. My brother's coming in a short time to probably check out the place, but also to deliver some planter's pots from a friend of his. So, just had breakfast. It's time to get back to work. Morning, folks. Well, it's the next morning, and we probably got about 2/100 of an inch of rain last night and this morning. It's really overcast. Most of the rain is probably going to go south of us, Syracuse area, today, like usual. But it is pretty greasy up here. So I was able to get what I'm going to call a base station. And what do I mean by a base station? A place where I could park the vehicles when it's time to work here, stage some logs. Now these will get moved as well. I'm trying to remove as few trees as I need to. But one of my goals is in this area here is to try and remove as much of the multiflora rose bushes. And here's an example of one right here. They've been going for years, and they just climb right up the trees, and they're just loaded, just like we have poison ivy, the grapevines, and all of this. And in some of the time lapse that I did filling in here, you probably could appreciate so much of the, well, you could see the greenery and you could see the vines and some trees. And so this is where the hugelkultur pit is. I haven't finished it off yet. It was getting late yesterday when I finished this, and boy, it's like walking on grease. So this is the pit. These pits are pretty big. It's really hard to appreciate them when you're looking at them with a video. But I separated the topsoil. Of course, it's got all the root mass in there, and this clay and sandy, very fine gravel and silt like material. So there's still more material that's going to have to be filled in on top of this. I'll beat it down some with Elon, depending on how the weather is, and then I can work up in that area as well. Unfortunately, this is not the material that I was hoping for. I was hoping for more of a gravel so that I could come down here. It is just like walking on a slippery floor, and I've got to be very careful I don't hurt myself here. So what I'd like to do is either make the roadway coming right through this spot here, whereas I put some of that sandy material down right here, which is of no value in a driveway, right down in here. So one of these two locations is where I'll make the roadway coming up. There are a couple of natural trenches or like swales that come down in here, and they are directed right down here so that it floods right down in this area here. So it stays very, very wet, and the sediment is so deep here that if I ever got like one of the tractors down in here and started breaking traction, I'd probably bury it right down to the frame. Whereas up here, where it's higher, the soil is much thinner. It's just several inches. Where over there and down in here, it's a couple of feet deep. And it's because all of that material has been gradually, each time you get the thaws and the big downpours and all, it works its way down. It's probably hard to see, but there's a small trench that makes its way right up through the woods, through the forested area. And there's 2 more over there as well. So what I've got to do is redirect these so we go down there along the property line, excuse me, and go into the pond on the other side of the road. Excuse me. So that's one of the projects. I don't plan on getting too much done over here this year. I'd love to be able to get a roadway built up in there, but it really depends on how the weather is. And it really depends on how good the ground is up there as well. And how much of how bad the material is that I'm going to have to go through. So down here along, I'm going to call this the marginal zone around the pond. So these are places where the beaver really depend on. So I really don't want to be bothering these areas. I will make some small sections going out to the edge. Not like this. This is where I had to push a whole bunch of material and all. But the beaver had dropped that tree over there not too long ago, and they're creating their spots and getting their food resources, foraging from in here. But here's more of this really nasty rose bush here. And the birds will transplant this all over the place. But what I want to do is be able to have a marginal zone, be able to work a bit of a roadway, and I started pushing up through here a little bit, and I've got a lot of work to do, but trying to weave in between decent trees up in here and leave a nice marginal zone, at least 50 feet between where the natural marginal zone of the pond is, where all the plants are that's partially in water, and then the area that's in fairly non-wet soil, at least a 50-70 foot area with small little paths going down so that I can potentially go down there and take pictures eventually, but work our way over to the property edge over there and then work my way up through the forest over there. I do want to make things down here so that Carol can take Sammy, her horse, and go for nice trail walks around in here as well. But the area next to the stone wall, which I'll show in another video, I guess, up over in that area, there's so many of these basswood, and I don't know how far up all the basswoods. I didn't go up to mark the trail, but these are a whole, I mean, there's maple there and ash there as well. But the really dense area there's so many of the basswood trees there. And I really don't want to take too many trees out, to tell you the truth. I just want to be able to just make some roadways and then work on dealing with some of the major problems later on. The area where these logs were all along in here was that large pile of material that I dug from all around in here. I took that material, most of this area, and piled it up over there, and that's the material that you saw me taking and depositing over there in the hugelkultur pit. And then some of the stuff that had more thick soil hooked to it, I dug up from around down in here and used that to cap some of it. I used some of the sandy clay as well in there, hoping that some of this, if we get some good rains, will work its way down in there in between all of the branches and debris of the hugelkultur pit. And this will sink some. This will sink probably a good 1.5 feet. If I left it like it is until spring, it'd sink down 1.5 feet. But I want to make this solid enough that the deer can walk over it, the wildlife can go through the area, they'll be curious and go over that area without the chances of them getting a hoof down in there and injuring themselves. So that's where I'm at. I haven't decided what I'm going to do today. I've got work up above that I've got to do. And so I haven't done much this morning. It's almost breakfast time, so I'll take a look at the other hugelkultur pit. That's a graduated hugelkultur pit where I'm taking the gravel out, where I've got road work to do on the other side of this road over here. So this is going to close up this video. The base station is somewhat established. The first hugelkultur pit on this side of the pond is in, and I got to decide how much I want to try to bite off before the snow flies. Still got to get the tomatoes out of the ground and work to do over there. Thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you find this of value, and by all means feel free to leave any comments and ask any questions. And sorry I haven't gotten back to people on all the comments and questions lately. I've just been a bit overwhelmed. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.